So hello everyone. Uh,
Welcome.
Welcome to See No Evil. Just to date, today's 23rd of January 2025.
But before we start,
And
I think we need to explain the hats before some
we
people
have,
think it's the
Yeah,
wrong kind of channel.
yeah,
But
that's clear.
sorry, I have,
it's make animation great again.
yeah,
But
for who doesn't know, this is a cap we did on first Trump uh, when he was elected. We thought it's the right time to bring that back. But so today we have Fabrizio, before we introduce him properly, I'm gonna just scroll his website really quick so you guys can see what he does.
be careful of the
So
tabs.
yeah, no, I left only one open. So this
Okay.
is Fabrizio website. You guys can check properly late. We have his Instagram as well. But Fabrizio is an amazing illustrator, uh, uh, artist, and senior art director at Buck as well. So please welcome Fabrizio. Fabrizio, can you tell a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure. First of all, like thanks a lot, guys, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So yeah, it's super nice, like this invitation. So I'm really happy to be with you. And yeah, it's hard to define yourself. It's such like a difficult task, but I think like I'm mainly an artist, like slash illustrator, but also like an art director. So I kind of divide myself between like being an illustrator and being an art director. Because I think like even though these are like related things, I think like it's the work is really different. So yeah, I'm an illustrator and an art director, I guess. Yeah.
That's
Or
cool.
maybe just like a creative person.
Mm.
Maybe I don't know.
It's always difficult to put title nowadays,
Yeah,
you know.
But
exactly.
we always wear like many or say many caps or many hats, don't we? Like being illustrator, art director. Just I mean, creative just sounds best because it's all encompassing.
Yeah, exactly. I think like creative, it's like a big umbrella of like a lot of things, especially because I don't come from like art school or like a design school. I'm a former architect actually.
Mhm.
So it's just like, a lot of things under the same umbrella. And yeah, but on my LinkedIn, it's art director. So
Yeah. How old are you, Fabrice?
I'm 36 now. Yeah, just
36, yeah. Now I'm
two
asking
two
because
weeks ago.
I was talking to you earlier and I researched a little bit, and I saw you come with a background in architecture, and I'm a little bit older than you, almost 10 years, but
All right, don't show
it's
off.
it's super common. I don't know, in my time, a lot of my friends, we didn't really had any, let's say, animation design schools in Brazil back in the days, so a lot of people used to go for architecture, and a lot of friends end
Definitely.
up going doing 3D or doing more artistic industry later. But
Yeah.
it's so I want to understand why you went to architecture and like change.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a great question. I think my story, it's not like very linear. It's full of like ups and downs. And I think like as many people within the creative industry, I was the weirdo at school who used love to draw and used to design, like t-shirts for the soccer teams or for the bands, this type of thing. So since like the very beginning of my life, drawing was, like the most fun thing for me. Um, but I didn't know that I was like, like a creative person or anything like this. So when I was like about going to the university, there is like, Thiago knows that there is a lot of pressure in Brazil, like what you gonna do, like, and I went to university like in 2006 or 7, don't remember exactly. And back then there wasn't like any animation schools, like like design schools in Brazil. So it was more like like this regular type of careers like law, or like being a doctor or going to economics, this type of thing. So I didn't know what what I will do, but I knew that I love to draw, and I used to love, like, I still love like cartoons. And then
Mhm.
my dad was a doctor, so he asked me, you know, what are you going to do? Next year you need to choose a career, blah blah blah. And I was like, I don't know. I have no idea, but I think I wanna make cartoons. I used to love like Cartoon Network, like Nickelodeon, this type of thing. So it was, my dream to work with this thing. Never want to be like, like a fireman or, superhero, anything. My dream was like to, live drawing, wake up every day, go to a drawing board, blah, blah, blah. And then my dad was a super nice guy, and he told me, okay, if you want to do that, go for it, but you must go to university no matter what.
That's
So you
nice.
can choose like art school or graphic design, whatever you want. So I was more like leaning into fine arts, like going to an art school and know properly like how to draw, because I never went to a art school in my life. And I was, super, yeah, into it, decided and anything. But then my dad, like 3 months after this chat, he died in an accident.
Oh,
And
no.
then I realized it, fuck, what I'm going to do now. And I had like this kind of like idea that I should, because my dad died, and then and everything like was happening, the grief and everything. I thought I should go to a more like formal like career, a more like stable career. And I knew at that time that architecture, it's, yeah, designing buildings, but there is like a bit of like drawing involved. So I thought like, yeah, that's the choice. Like, I'm gonna draw, I don't know, like houses or something like this, but it's gonna be like a stable career. I will have a job. And I was super like ignorant in a way, because I didn't know the industry much, like the design industry, the animation industry. And yeah, I mean, but luckily was the best thing I did in my life, because I went to a school that was very new. Uh, it's called, like in English, School of the City. It's just like a architecture university. There is no more courses, just architecture. And every Wednesday, from your first day until the end, every Wednesday is just like a drawing day. So you go out in the city, Thiago, like downtown São Paulo, 5 o'clock
Yeah.
in a Wednesday, you go to the most like crazy places
Wow.
just to draw, like with your whole
Mhm.
class. And this is for like the first year until the end.
Wow.
And this opened my mind, like in a way that I think art school will not open, because it wasn't just like a contact with drawing, it was like a contact with like the whole world. Like they used to teach you like not how to draw. There was no rules at all. It was like how you are going to see the world, and then how your brain will process that and put on the paper. So this was like,
But that's a lot more like the way you explain as well is a lot more artistic, you know, than
mhm,
that
It's
more
more observational. You're
traditional. Yeah.
observing and
exactly.
So
interpreting.
so it feels more like quite fine arts in somehow related, you know.
Yeah. And I think like this is really important, because I had a teacher, which is an amazing like artist, and he used to tell us like, if you go to a drawing class, you are ruined, because you will learn how to draw through like someone's system. And here, I don't want you to draw like me. I just want you to see the world through your own eyes. And this is like, when we talk like these days about style and everything, like someone who has like a very strong style, for me it's not that, this artist has a beautiful style. It's just this artist has a beautiful way to see the world. And he or she is able to put the way they see the word in the paper or in the canvas, like I don't know, you know. So it was amazing, like it was a great experience. And then I think like the architecture school told me two main things that I do like every day. First one is to to see like every task as a project. So even though like you are working on a very small editorial illustration, you should see this as a project. So you should research the subject, like make sketches, like ask a lot of questions, then see how much time do you have, and then set the style because of your time and how much they are paying you. And this like architecture, you know, it's about that. It's about like answering questions and planning and projects and, you know, this type of thing. And then the other thing is, which for me is the key thing for each artist, it's like the importance of like sketching and thumbnails and being able to explain an idea through drawing. So let's say that, you know, you want to build a cabin. So I'm able like to design a very rough, quick sketch to show you how I imagine this cabin. Because an idea explained is just an idea. But when you have an idea and you just make a rough sketch and show your idea, you can convince people easily, you know, like, so yeah, it was like a great choice, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
So going from,
for what you
sorry.
explained, taught you a lot more than, you know, just drawing and architecture, you know, like it feels a lot more complex and things you could use late in life as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How did you get from architecture into kind of like the illustration side of things? What's that journey?
It was a long one. I think like it was, I mean, I left school in 2012, and I was really, really into architecture during the school, and I was enjoying a lot. And I still love architecture. Like anytime I, you know, go to a place, yeah. When I was in London this year was my first time. I went to the Barbican, like I went to Tate. Like I love to see buildings. It's something that I love. So I
Is that why
was
you're in Barcelona? Because obviously Barcelona is famous for architecture, like Gothic and modern.
more or less, yeah, kind of,
I thought so.
kind of, yeah, kind of. Barcelona was like, yeah. I mean, it's another talk. I can talk about that later, but yeah, kind of. So during the university, I was super into architecture. Like, you know, I was super geek. It was the first time in my life that I felt on the right place. You know what I mean? Because during the school time, like I wasn't good at I wasn't like a great student, to be honest. And I'm not a great reader. But if you give me like a paper and a pencil, I can spend like 12 hours, like with no stop, like drawing. So I was in an environment that was super creative, like people making models, like people drawing. So for the first time, I felt like, you know, on the right place. So I was super into it. But one day I was presenting a project. It was like a, you know, like a library, this type of building. And I was like in the fourth year, I don't know, and a teacher looked at me, and I was a very good student at the university, but he looked at me in front of everyone and he told me, you know, you pretend you are a good architect, but you just like make good drawings. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
because your presentations are really good, they are really beautiful, but the buildings itself, I don't know. I have my doubts. It was a really tough guy. And then I was like, at first I was like offended by that, but I realized it after, you know, like a bit of time that he was right, because I used to enjoy much more the process of like showing my ideas and, like showing how the building will look like, more than solving the problems of, you have 100 square meters, you need to fit like 5 rooms, blah blah blah, the staircase, it needs to be like this or like that. So I realized that. And at the same time, one of my best friends went on a trip and she gave me a drawing book by a Swiss artist called Ingo Geisendanner, which is like his travel journals. And when I looked at, I told myself, I want to be this guy and I just want to draw. Like, I don't want to make buildings anymore. So yeah, that was like when I realized that. But when I left school, I was working with like art installations and like building like stage designs, this kind of stuff. And then I founded a studio with 3 more friends, and it was amazing because we were super free to create like a lot of like weird things, uh, kind of like inspired by the Eames. So sometimes you are making a building, sometimes you are making a book, sometimes you are making a film,
Cool.
like Powers of 10. So we were like four people, and we had this thing in common, to believe that architecture, it's much more than buildings. It's like a way of thinking and a way of like processing things. So we used to make like from buildings like restaurants, we did many like flat renovations, to like concert stages, like we did Sonar in Brazil. We did
That's
other like
nice.
festivals and exhibitions, like, yeah. So yeah, I mean, and during this time in this studio, I was in charge of like designing more or less like and art directing like the pieces, but also like doing like some graphic projects, like posters for geeks or content for video mapping. We did a lot of like video mapping. So yeah, and at some point, after like 7 years, I was I discovered like Buck, like Giant Ant, like Golden Wolf, like all these amazing studios. And then I realized that I want to work with these. I wasn't super happy because it's really hard. You guys know more than me, like to have a studio and to have like people working from you, and like bills to pay. And I was like feeling really stressed and really down, and at the same time wanting like to make this switch. And I remember a day I was super sad at home, and my wife told me, like, you just complain but you do nothing. So if you want to be like inside the animation industry, just go for it,
Go
like
for
work
it.
hard. Yeah.
It sounds similar to like your father figure kind of thing, or is like, yeah, just go for it.
Yeah, I think like sometimes we need like these people who see our career and our life from the outside,
Definitely.
because they can judge like sometimes like better than you, like they can see things like, because sometimes things can be very foggy for us. And she told me, dude, stop complaining, like just do that. And then I went to next day to animation school in Brazil. And the next year I was doing like a master in animation. I already knew like to work with all the softwares, but also like After Effects. So I was familiar because I was super interested in. I was like doing small loops for my Instagram and this type of thing. And then yeah, I started to to do to sorry, I started to do this course, and it was great. But uh, one friend, he called me and he told me, look, Fabrizio, I have like uh, something to propose you. I have like this newspaper, and I want like 7 illustrations about like, like classic buildings in São Paulo. But we will not pay you. And I was like, fuck, man. Because I was already like not old, but I was like, I don't know, like 20, 28, 20, 20 something, 29. And I was like, dude, I'm almost
Got rent to
30.
pay.
Yeah, I have things to pay. Like I need to pay my mortgage. Like, like, and I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm going to do, but then I have a second thought, and I realized that I was looking for these opportunities, like, totally freedom to create whatever I want. So I called him back. I said yes. And then I did this. I posted, it was great. And one day I received an email from advertising agency in São Paulo. And the email was like, we looked at your work and we want you to design the Lollapalooza's poster for this year,
Wow.
like the festival. And I thought it was like a scam or something, and I didn't reply. And then the other day they sent me a new email saying, like, we really want to talk to you, like, give me your number. And then I realized it, I went to meet them and it was real. And I realized that the art director from this agency saw the newspaper with the illustrations I did,
Wow,
and
that's
she
cool.
loved it. She
Wow.
loved it, and she proposed to the Lollapalooza team in London. They love it. And then yeah, and I did the poster, and things got like in track. So after like, yeah, a few months, I quit, and yeah, I
Is that one of
Because
those?
go ahead,
So is that
sorry.
one of those? Sorry, is that one of those projects? It's kind of like your starter project in a way. So it's one of those projects where you kind of feel where you hold it quite close to your heart in a way. It's like that's the one that got everything going, the genesis.
exactly.
Yeah, I was looking a lot, like just your background, where you work and everything, man. It's so different because now you comment, you work for advertisement agents, and I was looking, you work quite for a lot of advertisement agents before you move into the studio. And how did you feel that transition? Because it's complete two different worlds.
Yeah, while I was working in this studio, doing like from restaurants to flats to like stage, I've worked with a lot of like advertising agencies. It wasn't in campaigns, but more like events and this type of stuff. But I was like in this position of like leading the teams and being like the first point of contact with like the agencies. So I got like a lot of experience
It's
because
cool.
of that. It was more like event related, more than like what I do today. But it gave me like, yeah, a lot of like, I mean, running a studio gives you so much knowledge, uh, how to deal with a client, like how to be smart, like how to deal with like, being productive, like, yeah, I don't know. So I already worked with like a lot of agencies, and then when I switched, it was supernatural, less events, more like campaigns, but was like natural. I didn't feel like, yeah, I I wasn't in the wrong place in a way. So yeah.
That's nice. That's a quite a big transition as well, especially looking at work and where you're working now, and like advertisement agents always feel a little bit more holding you back. Looking the talent of
Totally,
your illustration. Yeah,
totally. And yeah, but then like, when I started to work more like in commercials and advertising, I at some point, like, and this happens with a lot of people, right? I felt that this whole thing was kind of like draining my creativity in a way, because it was happens, you are using like all the cells you have in your brain to be creative for, like a campaign. And I told myself, like, I don't want to lose the passion I have for the craft and for drawing and for doing stuff like for myself. So since the beginning, I was like super rigid with my personal practice. So yeah, I never stopped to draw for myself. And
That's
I
nice.
think this is key for any like creative who loves to draw and to illustrate and this type of things, because let's be honest, like, we work for clients, and not very often you have the opportunity to develop your own style, because I don't think like pushing your own style for a client it's worth, because sometimes the project doesn't need your style, needs
And I
like a
think,
different thing.
and
And
a lot of clients as well, they normally come to you after see what you've done. You know,
Mm.
it's I don't know. From my experience, feels a lot more hard. Sometimes you pitch your own thing, your own style to a client, but like you said, when you're doing your own thing, like before you did that job and that client came and saw that and wanted that. I think, especially with advertisement agents, works quite a lot like that way. You know, they see and they wanted that. You know,
They
but
want to
yeah,
when
see
they
that it
don't see, it's
works
yeah, they need
first. Yeah.
they needed that. So it's I think is a good point here.
yeah, totally. And I think like I because I kind of like divided myself between my illustration work and my art direction work. So being super honest, like what pay my bills and gives me the life I have, it's my art direction works, because of course, like, we work inside the advertising, like industry. So it's much easier than just leave from like, editorial illustration. But because I have like the privilege of like working in a studio and having like, like a regular paycheck like every month, I can spend a bit of time working on something that, it's like, yeah, my thing. And as much as I do my own thing, like my own style, like, even if it's just like doing something to post, I think like this type of work like attracts more work that you want to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I try to keep like my personal work less commercial and more like what I want to do. So I receive like a lot of like, like inquiries for doing stuff. And if I find like it's not worth, because I will not be able to develop like what I want, I don't do it. But
that's
it's
cool.
a privilege, because I have my, like my regular work at Buck, which is like amazing. Like, like waking up every day knowing that you will be working with a great team, like, and developing like such cool stuff, even though it's not your stuff. But this is a little bit of like being older and have like the maturity to being able to split yourself between like two different
Yeah.
personas. So
Yeah,
yeah,
How
and
have
they
you
over they overlap a lot, like, and yeah.
so you work at Buck at the moment. So when you said you kind of started your journey into like illustration side of things and animation, one of the studios you looked at was Buck. So how did you end up there? And if it was one of the studios you first looked at, it's kind of like, oh, and then you end up working there. That's a pretty special thing, special feeling.
Yeah, like this when you dream, but not sleeping. Like when you dream, like, you
Like
know.
lucid dreaming.
Yeah, exactly. I used to dream with the day that I will receive an email from Buck, like, you want to work here. That was my dream since I discovered Buck. Like, no matter what. But I knew I will never work there because I felt that I wasn't, and this it's like the imposter syndrome. It happens with everyone. I felt that I wasn't like good enough to work there as everyone in within the industry. We have this problem. Let's talk about
Yep.
that later. But what happened is that when I left the animation master degree, I started to work a lot like with amazing animation studios, mostly in Brazil, but also like studios from abroad. And then Buck started the Buck You Back, like the Instagram profile. And they used to repost like the best thing in the week. They still do these days. And I remember I was featured 6 times in a row, like tuk, 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 tuk,
Wow.
tuk. And I was like, okay, that's a good sign. I don't feel prepared, but that's a good sign. And at that time, I was doing a work for Spotify with like an agency in Brazil, and I was working with like a super talented friend who work at Buck now as well. And
Did you
we
get them
were
in there, or did they start working there before you, or was it just same
she's,
coincidence?
she started before me, and I said like, oh, I would love to work at Buck, and she was like, dude, just send them an email, like you are capable of doing that. And I went, no, I'm not sure, like maybe next year. So I was always like, postponing things because I want to build like a stronger portfolio to be able to apply. And then this was like 2020, very beginning of the pandemic. And then I decided, yeah, okay, I'm gonna apply. I apply it, send an email, and after like 15 minutes, I received like an answer saying, "Hey, Fabrizio, do you have 15 minutes to chat?" And I was like, heart beating, like, "Oh my God, fuck, let's chat." And then they offered me like, they said, let's make like a week like freelancing, let's see, let's meet you. And I remember like the first day I was shaking, and I was on a project that wasn't like super clear what it was more like an internal thing. And then after 2 days they told me, okay, let's test you in a different project. And it was like a very like crazy style, and they were like they were interested to see if I was flexible enough to be able like to switch styles. And then I remember I did the like the tree that you guys use it on the flyer was this
Oh yeah.
drawing. I did this drawing. That's why I sent this drawing. I did this drawing, and the director told, "Oh fuck, this is amazing! I love it." And I was like, "Yeah, you." Looks looked like I was, like scoring a goal. And then after, like a few weeks, they offered me a staff position. So,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it was like pandemic. I was working from Brazil, from my home, but yeah, it was like 5 years ago,
How
and that's
how does
how it
it
started.
how does it work? Obviously you're working remotely. How does it work? Because obviously most of this, American side, obviously got the UK one. How does it work in terms of time zones and like pipeline as well, I guess?
Yeah, dude, it's like it really depends, because I think like since the pandemic, things changed a lot. Because I remember like I don't know if you guys did that, but I remember going to a studio to work there the whole day as a freelancer, and then
Mm.
coming back home. So since the pandemic, I think like we started to work a lot remotely. And I think like animation and like branding and our industry, it's one industry that can work really well remotely. And I think like the pandemic opened the doors for a lot of like talented people from everywhere
Mm.
to be
Everywhere.
able to work like with great studios.
Some companies just needed to be forced to do it, whereas obviously it takes a pandemic to force a company. Whereas before that, it was like, I'm not sure if we'll get the work done, but obviously
Yeah.
because of the pandemic, it's like, no, we have to get the work done, and it works out usually
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but works really well. And of course, like every company has like policies for working remote. So I'm not going to, like a coffee shop to, you
Yeah, of
know,
course.
be there very noisy. Like I have my workstation,
You've got
but
all the NDAs on the screen in your coffee shop.
exactly. And we have like people working from, Buck Europe. We have a big team working from Amsterdam, but also like a big team working from the UK. So I think it's our in our DNA, like working remotely, and also like we work not just for clients in Europe, like or in the UK. We work a lot of for the US. So like it's like a game of like time zones and like Google Meets and yeah, but works
Is
really
that
well. Like
is that how they is that how they put teams together? That depending where the project time zone is and which is more appropriate to where you're located?
not really, because Buck has a very global team. So sometimes you are in a project and you are working with someone in, like of course, like here in Europe, in the UK, but also in the US. And sometimes someone is doing like like overnight work in Australia. So
Mm.
it really depends who suits better the project. So yeah, it really depends. Of course, like time zones can be an issue depending of the project. If it's something that it's like quite demanding, you don't have much time. I
It's hard.
usually I prefer to be working within the same time zone, because sometimes I need to hop on a call and like
Yeah.
explain something for a designer or ask something that for me it's urgent at that moment. So it really depends, but it's if it's more like like a long-term project, I think it's yeah, it's okay like to switch like
So
time zones and everything.
if it's like a long-term project and nothing's super urgent kind of thing, do you kind of stick to like a 9 to 5 Barcelona time then? Or does it always kind of like slip a little bit? Or like I guess it depends on what hours you like working in a way.
No, it's like yeah, I pretend I'm working on an office, but it's a room in my house. So it's like from 10 to 7 like every day, 1 hour
Yeah.
lunch and being focused. I love working from home, to be honest, because I'm very focused and I don't have any noise because my daughter is at school from, like 9 to 5. So I can be really focused. And yeah, it's like like a regular workday, but in your house.
How so you've got a daughter. Like how does it work with so how does it work with like holidays and school? This is a weird question. Like, how does it work with like holidays and school holidays? Because Europe is different to America and all that kind of side of things. Like America has hardly any time off at all comparatively.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah,
holidays. Holidays are a nightmare. Like they should not
special summer
exist.
holiday.
Yeah, summer holiday. No, I'm kidding. Um, it's hard. It's really hard. Like it's parenting. It's tough. I stop it a lot of like my personal practice since I got a kid, and yeah, I mean, but it's part of like the process. But usually, like sometimes we go to Brazil because we have like like grandparents that help with
Mm.
her. And when I am in Brazil, I work like Europe time, so I work from like 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then I can spend the rest of the day with her. And yeah, I mean, it's like moving pieces all the time and making sure it's working. But yeah, these days like I relax more at work than outside of work. It's
Yeah,
like
I think every
but
parent probably
it's what we
understands that
were.
one.
It's where we talking in the beginning, like before we jump on the call with kids, like living in Europe or living outside your country, it's so hard not
it
having the
is.
support of the family, because like we
Mm,
said,
definitely.
just to have the grandparents there to say, hey, you drop for a day
Yeah.
or for a night, go out with your partner is just make a difference. When you live as a couple with a kids in another country is just like the level
It's really difficult.
is really
Yeah.
difficult. But
It's annoying because they never get around at the bar, do they? They always take.
yeah, it is. So Fabrizio, I have a good question for you.
Yeah.
So
It may.
the beginning, you know, like you have that dream to work with Buck, and you thought that never gonna happen, you know. So now you work with Buck. So what is your goal now? You know, what is your dream? You know, you already achieved something you thought was
Yeah.
impossible. Uh, where is your next steps? You know, that doesn't need to go in detail, leaving Buck, things like that. But where you see you going,
Is
you know, in
anybody
the
from Buck
future?
watching?
It's like no, it's a really good question because I think like um this I don't know why, but we always have like this goal of like, you know, like grow, 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 grow. Of course, like I'm talking from a very um how can I say, like privileged position because I already work where I wanted to work
Yeah.
in like, you know, like a senior position. Um but I think like focusing on that, I don't know if it's the right thing to do. I don't I to be 100% honest, I don't focus on that. I have like a very comfortable routine, like a very comfortable, like, you know, like work environment. And my goal is to produce good stuff. Like for me, my biggest nightmare is when I draw something or when I have like a bad idea or when I draw something that I don't like. Like I look and I say it's crap. Like, and the feeling that I most like in life is when I design something, I look at it and I feel happy, which is doesn't happen very often. But
That's good.
that's my goal. Like my goal is to keep, you know, like keep producing good stuff. But I would love to have a bit more time to do more analog stuff. So my goals and my dreams are very like lo-fi at the moment, you know, because my work is already like very, you know, like yeah, demanding. And I mean, I love it, but I sometimes I just want to, you know, like relax and reconnect again of with like pencil paper. Like with my daughter I do a lot of like collage and, you know,
That's
like
cool.
crayons, and she loves like Ghibli's films, so we draw like Totoro. She loves Pokemon, we draw the Pikachu. So I love like, and she kind of like reconnected me with this more like analog side of the things.
That's nice.
Because when I was in university, that something I forgot to say. Of course, like there were computers, AutoCAD, like 3D, all these like beautiful architecture softwares, but I used to make everything on paper. It was like my signature, like crayons, like paper, like Posca. I used to make everything with my hands, and I used to make like a lot of like sketchbooks. And of course, like naturally, when you get into the industry, you go more like digital because, you know, this is how the
Yeah.
world it is today. We design for screens mainly, not just, but mainly, right? So yeah, I'm a big fan of like Procreate, Photoshop, but she kind of like reconnected me with like when I was like 10 years ago doing stuff
That's
analog.
nice.
And yeah, so my goal is that like doing analog stuff, listening my music, and yeah, just like
That's good.
enjoying
I love the
That, that's
I, I love like the freeness in the I don't know, just try anything approach from a, you know, the innocence of a kid's drawing. Whereas like, you know, the older you get, the more kind of stuck in your ways. But then when you become like a father or what have you, and your kid's doing these crazy drawings that have have no grounding in any kind of reality, it's really quite freeing.
totally, totally super. Like it kind of like reconnects you again with like your own child, you know, like
Mm.
I
You
don't
start
know.
breaking your own rules.
Exactly. And this is something like, because I could say, oh, my goal is like, now that I'm like a design director, I want to be like a creative director. But at the same time, I'm very honest with myself. And being an art director already makes you put less your hands on the paper, because you need to manage time, resourcing, creative meetings. Like sometimes you even don't have the chance to put, like on your hands on the Photoshop, or like get dirty. So being super honest with me, like I don't wanna stop like designing. So I don't want to go to a position that I will not design anymore. I'm not interested on that, because I
Yeah,
love design, I love art, I love illustration. I don't want to stop doing this.
I
So yeah,
think that's the trick, and people don't really realize. People sometimes just chase that dream, that big job, or to have their own studio and everything. I
exactly.
remember, like when I opened the studio, the whole idea was like producing the work I want to do and everything. And you realize when the studio owner, you spend a lot of time in meetings and things like that, and more put the hands on, and was some process really hard for me to let that go, because I always told the producer, I want to do this shot, I want to do this shot, until one day she came to me and said, listen, you can't do that shot because you're going to be pulling a meeting and you're going to screw the whole schedule.
Yeah,
So but it's really hard, and people don't really realize, especially when they start in the career, to
yeah,
follow that dream is two different things. It's like you said, you want to be doing your work, you want to be illustrating and creating your own work, and it's really hard. The harder, the higher you get, is the less chance you really have to do that.
exactly. And I think like, I don't know, I don't feel, and it's just like, it's very personal, right? It's not like a rule, it's the way I see things. I don't feel comfortable pretending that I know things that I don't. Of course, like I know animation. If you give me like After Effects, I can do like a more and less like a good thing, but I don't feel comfortable like leading an animation team at all, like at all. I can be like, like the main creative director in a illustration driven project or in a illustration system. Of course I can, but I can't pretend I know things that I don't know. And to be honest, like I'm not gonna learn, because I'm more interested on like other subjects. So I think like the main thing for like everyone in the industry is to really understand what you want to do, like, and being honest with yourself. And if your goal is to be a creative director, because I think there are a lot of people who know animation, who know design, who have like amazing ideas, who know like movies, who is able to design like a storyboard, then like, yeah, go for it. But it's not my cup of tea, to be honest.
That's nice. That,
And yeah,
that's nice and honest.
I feel very happy knowing that. I think it's a privilege to know that, because, yeah,
I completely agree.
yeah,
It's nice.
I don't know.
Nice. We have a question from Lucas Salis. He asked, "Do you
Oh,
have a
look.
dream personal project, like a short film or publish a
Oh,
personal book, something like that?"
that's great question. Lucas is a amazing Brazilian illustrator. Check him Instagram. Um, I have, yeah. I mean, I already make a lot of like dream projects, to be honest. We did last year a video clip at Bug for Mabel. Was like 30, 40 seconds, don't remember. Full cell animation, like, I mean, dream project. So in my daily basis, I already do a lot of stuff that was my goal to do when I was younger. But my biggest dream project now is to make a child's book. Uh, I have
It's cool.
a lot of sketches I will do, guys. I don't know when, because I don't have much time. But when after like Gloria has born, I started to read a lot of like children's book, of course, and I started to research more. And from the outside, looks like a very easy thing to make, but it's super hard because, I mean, it needs to be very rich in terms of visual, and the visuals needs to tell the story, because like the sentences should be like very short. So it's
Mm.
like this very difficult challenge of like condensing things and tell a story with the less amount information you have.
Yeah,
And I love it. So that's my biggest dream project these days. I will
that's
make
cool.
it. I don't know when, but I will
Yeah.
try it one day.
I think kids is something always like looks simpler, but it's always more complex. They need to get in a
Mm.
simple way, and it's really nice, having the kids. My daughter spent a lot of time going to the studio and things like that, and
Uh-huh.
it's so nice when you show a project and suddenly they ask you that question. It's so naive. That question is so pure and ask, and
Yeah,
you look and say, "Why I didn't think that?" It's because it's like James was saying earlier, that it's a free form that they know, like us, has attached things, and they just go and ask, and it's amazing to see the reality, the difference between the two worlds.
Has she ever
it's
like disrespected your work though?
No, she criticized quite a lot, like things and that. But you need to explain this. Why this? And
What
yeah.
the
but
fuck is that?
some points is like the perspective of a kid, but sometimes it's things we as an adult we forget to see. You know,
Yeah, definitely.
uh,
Yeah,
be, because they see it in a way for us is like it is there, but when you're really looking into the form of art and you say why, you could put this and it makes the difference.
yeah,
It's quite nice. I quite really enjoying, like you said, you go a lot with your
yeah,
daughter. I really enjoying the process, doing creative things with my daughter.
yeah. And it's really beautiful because they are so, I mean, the wrong word, guys, but they are so pure in a way
Mm.
that they are different than us, because they focus more on the process and not on the, like the ending result. So my daughter, for example, like doesn't matter if in the end she draws like just, like weird scribbles, like, like I don't know, like circles on anything. I see her really enjoying the process of like having a
Mm.
crayon and like making the noise of the crayon on the paper, and especially like mixing colors, so like yellow and blue you get green. So she's really focused on the process. And sometimes I think like within our industry, we we compare ourselves a lot with other people, so
Yeah,
we focus less on the process and much more like on the final result. Of course, like this is natural, I focus on the end result a lot of times, but she kind of like like teached me in a way to come back to the process more, and like enjoying the process of like discovering what you are designing, or like rediscovering the pleasure of like a rough sketch. And yeah, it's really good, like you really get back on I mean, it's not a magical thing, but you really get back on
yeah,
track in a way, you know because you have like, I don't know, like more freedom. And yeah.
I quite like the idea of what you were saying earlier about a children's book. Kind of like the idea of doing some kind of exercises with your kid and coming up with the idea together, because then they'll take your idea and make it out there, and then you'll take the idea and make it more realistic, and you'll get this kind of magical thing in the middle.
Yeah,
Could
totally,
be super. This could
totally.
be super fun.
And she has a book that I love it, really well designed, but I think it's not for her age. It's a bit more complex because the visuals are more crowded, but it's like a beautiful book. It's called Good Night Bo. It's like a Danish book, I believe. Sorry, I don't remember the name of the author, but it's a beautiful story about a boy who doesn't want to go to sleep. So her mom starts like to like make a game with him. So she pretends she's an animal and he pretends he's an animal, blah, blah, blah. And she hates this book. And I
Okay.
always want to read, but she hates because I think like it's very complex and visually it's like crazy. On the other hand, like she loves like anything from Dick Bruna, like Miffy and everything, and the design is quite like reduce it in a way.
Yeah.
So the minimal amount of like shapes you need to draw a car or like a zebra or anything, and she's crazy about that.
That's
So
cool.
this process also like taught me like to think about the minimal amount of like information I need in my work, because
Yeah.
I can go really crazy and I can overdo things over and over and over. And now I'm trying to go back and
Reverse, make
yeah,
less is
re-
more, no?
kind of,
Do you
yeah.
do you know
Yeah.
the there's like a kids book there's really nice illustrations. A guy called Jarvis.
I don't know.
I'll send you a link. Readers, I love his illustrations. He did a really cool book called Alan's Big Scary Teeth about
Oh,
a
amazing. Yeah.
crocodile with false teeth and what have you. I don't want to spoil the ending, but
No,
I just love his
please.
illustrations. They're like just nice, bright, and they can be a little bit busy, but they've just got something really nice to them. Like very, I don't know. I'll send
Yeah.
you. I'll send the link.
No, I really want to see. Really want to see. Please send me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we get a bit lost in the process. Like it's always a lot easier to overdo things and overcomplicate than trying to deliver
Yeah.
a simple whatever it is, if it's in animation or design or illustration, and it's less to hide as well when the thing is simple. The message needs to be so clear. I think it even turns to be more difficult to produce the work than when we overdo the project. It's
Definitely.
it's
It's a big
it's crazy.
challenge. Like,
Yeah,
and practically, like, for example, you have let's say we have a film to do. So we have this amount of money, this amount of time. So with this amount of money, we can have like, I don't know, like 3, 4, 6, 10 people in the project. So setting a style, it's also about that, like sometimes you need to
yeah,
reduce the amount of like information. I mean, just like if you are working in a cell animation project and in a, I don't know, like a After Effects project, it's completely different because
yeah,
cell animation, you have a lot of limitations in terms of
yeah.
style. So it's all about like reducing how we can tell this. I mean, you can go really crazy if you have
If
time
you
and
have the
money.
time and
If
money,
you have
yeah.
time and money, but it's not, yeah, I mean, the reality all the time. Sometimes you have, and it's amazing.
I
But
think the
sometimes you don't.
reducing and the minimalism is just I think that's the hardest thing. Other people just don't realize how difficult it is to break something down to the simplistics and make it work and work well. I think it's a
It's,
really good talent.
I think it's the hardest thing to do. I mean, as an illustrator, I think it's the hardest thing. Like, it's one of my goals. Like, I'm trying to pursue this more like minimal way. Uh, Not getting there though, but who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe a day.
Cool. So we're getting into 1 hour show. So let's ask you a couple last questions. We have
Yeah.
a nice Vitor Sampaio. He said, since you perfect your style and that is how you saw the world, do you think that your vision of the world now is still the same as your style?
It's a really good question, but tricky to answer because I think style is something that should change like all the time. Of course, like you have some principles in your work that it's amazing to keep, but I think like style, this is personal. Again, it's not a rule, and I don't want to, like say the truth, but personally, I believe that the artists that I most like are the ones that are always like changing and like doing other stuff and you know developing the style and pushing the style further. I'm not a big fan of this type of artists who find a style and stick to it, like, for years. So I think it's always changing. So I don't know, like today's looks like this, but maybe like in 5, because we change, right? We see new
Yeah.
things, we discover things that we I mean, we used not to know, and we get older, we discover like a different artist from, like, let's say, a different place, we travel. So we are all, I think style, it's like a reflection of all the things you love. It should be, at least for me, like all the things that touches my heart directly. And like Dick Bruno, for example, like the eames, like, or like a sign that I see on the street, like all these small little things that you put in your inner library. This is your style in the end.
Mhm.
So it changes. It should change,
Very
I
true.
believe. So I don't know. Yeah.
True.
Agree.
True. You want to ask a last question, James? Anything?
I think I've done all the kids' questions. Um, if you were to describe yourself on a dating application, how would you describe yourself?
Oh my God, that's difficult. I don't know. I don't.
Colorful and complex.
I never had dates yet. But
All right, if you were to describe your work on a dating
illus-
app,
Yeah.
it's probably a better idea. But
okay, describing my work, I think like what I try to do is to celebrate things I love and beautiful things that makes me happy. So my work is a collection of like a lot of things that I love. It can be a plant, or Mifi, or like a Brazilian um, native art that I love. And yeah, I don't know. I celebrate the
That's
things I
nice.
love. Maybe that, I don't know. I need to check how I've written in my website, but maybe it's something like this. Like I don't know.
That's good. That's good. That's a nice way to end. Fabrice, thanks so much for your time, man, and to share a little bit of your life with us.
yeah, huge
It's
thank
great
you.
to know more. Man, I'm a big fan of your work. I think
Yeah.
your
Yeah,
illustration is
likewise.
amazing, man, and I want to see where you're gonna go. Especially
Mm.
talking about you changing styles through the
Yeah.
years. Let's see where you're gonna end up. But man, thanks so much for your time.
Huge thanks.
No, thanks a lot, guys. It was such a big pleasure. It's good to have like these moments about like reflecting about your career, because like in the daily routine you never like have
We
these
don't have,
options.
yeah.
So yeah,
Definitely.
it's a pleasure. I'm a big fan of Sina Wevo. So yeah.
Thanks
Uh,
so much, and thank you everyone for coming for next show. We have the live show in London on the 4th of Feb, and of course the online stream coming in February as well. We're gonna announce all on the Instagram soon as well.
Yeah.
But thank everyone.
dope.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks,
Thanks a
guys.
lot. See you
Have a
soon.
nice evening.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Oh, and the stream is end. Good.
Was
Thanks so
fast.
much.
Oh,
It
fun.
was super fast.
Feel